up, guys, and welcome to another episode of the Yard Podcast. I'm your host, Randy.
And I'm your host, Conan.
And really quickly, do us a favor while you're listening to this episode and leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts so we can continue to put the best possible content out there for you guys. And if you want to follow us on social media, you can find us at Dodger Yard on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. And you can find my personal at Randy_Radcliffe on Twitter and IG.
And my Twitter and Instagram is Michael Conan.
As we record this episode, we're 18 games into the season. The Dodgers are 11-7. It feels like a lot has happened. There's plenty of questions surrounding the team with everything going on. So let's get into the latest Dodger news real quick, and then we'll get to our thoughts about the team up to this point. First things first, we had a pitching change for today's game. It was supposed to be Julio Urias for today's game, and last night Robert said they were actually calling back up Tony Gonsolin. So Gonsolin will be making his second start of the season, and with that, Adam Kolarek was optioned back to the alternate site. So Kolarek came in last night, did pretty well. However, he does have options on his contract. A lot of the other guys do not, so he's still an easy candidate to send back down while Gonsolin comes up. I'm just excited Gonsolin's back. He looked good out there, and he's been one of our better pitchers over the last year or so. So I'm glad we're going to get him back. A little bit more news on some of the other guys we're waiting to come back on our injury updates. Seager is still nursing lower back discomfort, but the team doesn't think he will be an IL candidate just yet. On Monday, he swung the bat, did some running, and played catch. As of Tuesday afternoon, he was taking ground balls at shortstop. Roberts did say it'll be a slow progression, but hopefully because they aren't putting him on the IL, it means he'll be back sooner than later, because God knows with this offense, we need him. And speaking of offense, we found out on Saturday that Muncy told Alana Rizzo that the finger he hurt during summer camp when he was hit by a pitch, he actually ended up fracturing that finger and has been playing through it this whole time. So Alana kind of gave Muncy, I don't want to say an excuse, but kind of like a, hey, it makes sense why you've been struggling. Obviously, Muncy was like, no, I don't want an excuse. Like, I'm just sucking because I suck. But either way, I'm hoping that's finally healed because we kind of need Muncy back out there and figuring it out. He's always been a big piece of this offense the last 2 years. So hopefully he's out there ready sooner rather than later. As for Alex Wood, he has been on the IL for shoulder inflammation for about 2 weeks now, and on Monday he threw a 30-pitch bullpen. Robert said if it went well, he would throw again on Thursday. As of now, I did not hear anything about how the bullpen went. Did you hear anything about that or no?
I have not heard anything about that.
Okay, I didn't think so. So as of now, I don't know what's going on, but Wood might be pitching in a bullpen tomorrow. Unfortunately, on Monday, we found out that LA hero Joe Kelly got put on the IL due to shoulder inflammation. So the IL stint is retroactive to August 9th, and with Kelly going on the IL, that's how Adam Kolarek was recalled back to the team, was Kelly went on the IL. Obviously, Kolarek has now been sent back down. But yeah, so now we've got Seager, Muncy, Wood, and Kelly all on the IL. Obviously, Seager and Muncy being two of the... Well, Muncy's not on the IL, Seager's not on the IL, but they've been hurt. Seager's not on the IL, but hasn't been playing. Clearly, Seager and Muncy are two of the bigger pieces there right now. Seager bigger than any of them, but we need Muncy to find his bat. So I'm just hoping all these guys get healthy sooner rather than later, because we've seen pitching across the entire league take a hit. Offense has been miserable across the entire league. So when you have a guy like Corey Seager hitting as well as he is, you kind of need him back in that lineup sooner rather than later. But touching on Kelly going on the IL on Monday, he also had his appeal hearing on Monday. We don't know what happened. The team expects to hear from MLB sometime the next few days. So on next episode, we will go ahead and discuss that. But as of now, there's no more information. With everything that happened with the Ramon Laureano and the Astros hitting coach, I think it was that on Sunday? It was Sunday, right? Yeah. So on Sunday, with everything that happened there, the Astros coach got 20 game suspension. Laureano got 6. That actually was a physical I don't want to say it was a brawl, but in baseball terms, it was a benches clearing brawl. So I don't know. I'm hoping that helps Kelly's situation. I think if anything, it needs to be reduced to 1 or 2 games. I don't see them clearly wiping that off 100%. But yeah, I'm kind of hoping that helps Kelly's case, because if they come back and say, sorry, you're staying with 8 games, I think there's going to be an uproar. So we will see what happens there. Last week, Jansen told reporters that he still felt like his body was rebuilding after having COVID. He said his conditions are improving each week, his conditioning, but physically he feels like he still has a lot to regain. So he's hoping to have a better season as things go on, and he's hoping to, once we get to October, hopefully season makes it that far, he hopes to look back and see how much progress he's made. So I can only imagine what he's going through, that physical, what COVID did to him. So we all know how important Jansen is to this team, so let's hope he gets healthy sooner rather than later. Last week, the rosters did shrink down from 30 to 28. Like we mentioned, it will stay at 28 men for the rest of the season. I had mentioned Kolarek got sent down, then was back up due to Kelly going on the IL. Now he's back down again with Gonsolin being called up. And Zach McKinstry was also optioned back to the alternate site. So the Dodgers roster is down to 28. And speaking of roster, Terence Gore returned to the Dodgers at the end of July. The Dodgers DFA'd Gore, but on Monday he cleared waivers and joined the team again. So he's back at the alternate training site. That does not mean he will play for the Dodgers again, but he is on the roster. So I don't think he'll come back up, but we shall wait and see. Then a couple side notes for the week. This is more so just some encouraging news for Dodger fans, because we all need it right now with the way this offense has been, I can't say producing, but lack thereof production. On Tuesday, Joe Davis tweeted out a note about Will Smith. These are stats or prior to Tuesday's night's game. He did strike out in last night's game once when he came into pinch hit. However, prior to that, he has twice as many walks as he does strikeouts. His chase rate is 11%, which is a huge drop from 24% last season. And his expected numbers based on quality contact are top 10 in baseball. So, yeah, outside of like Seager, Pollock at times, and Mookie, for the most part, has been really the only offense we've seen. Taylor's come through at times. We've seen guys come through minimally at times, once or twice this season, but overall it's been pretty rough. Especially from the catcher side of things. We saw Smith and Barnes struggle really early, but I'm glad to know that Smith is hitting the ball well, because we need him out there. Especially when he has all those guys hitting in front of him who are on base. It feels like we've come up quite a few times with runners in scoring position with catchers, and it's just been kind of messy. As well, Mookie Betts is killing the ball. The Dodgers posted a stat of the week on Tuesday. It's something they do every single week. His Tuesday night stats have been added in since they tweeted this out, because they tweeted out prior to the game. But since the start of the last road trip, Mookie is 15 for 44, which is a .341 batting average with 10 extra base hits. His 6 doubles lead the Dodgers, and his 4 homers are tied for the team lead. And then last night, just want to give a big congratulations to Justin Turner on collecting his 1,000th career hit Tuesday night. He hit a double off the left field wall. It was so close to getting out, but you know what? He got his 1,000th career hit. So congratulations, Turner. We're happy for you. Keep it up. Keep going. And hopefully you can find your bat a little more too, sooner rather than later, because God, we all know we need it. So with that said, let's get into the questions.
Before we move on
to
the questions, I had some things I wanted to say about a few things. So with Gonsolin, it's good to see that he's going to be starting again, because I think he deserves it. He's more than earned it. It is interesting that they have essentially pushed Kershaw's start out of the Padres series. Now, Kershaw was not good against them last year, so I can see that making some sense, especially coming off a really bad start against the Giants. Maybe they just didn't feel comfortable enough with Kershaw pitching against the Padres. And I wouldn't say this is a must-win series, but they're kind of needing some wins here. In any case, I am very happy for Tony Gonsolin. Um, as far as Seager goes, there's no doubt about it that the Dodgers miss his bat, but he's still only one person. They still need contributions from Muncy, Bellinger, Peterson, and Turner to really get this offense going. Otherwise, I don't think much is going to change. I don't think runs are going to go up. Hits might go up. But if there's nobody on in front of him, then the hits really don't matter all that much. You had mentioned that he swung a bat. I did not see that, so I'm glad he's swinging the bat. That's going to be a big test for him. I hope all goes well. But regardless of all that, it would be nice to have him back in the lineup because it seems like I think you mentioned that Seager, Betts, and Pollock have done all the heavy lifting thus far. Um, as far as Muncy goes, I know me and you have had a discussion about this, about his finger and what should happen, but this could linger. Depending on the fracture, it could lead up to like a couple months before he's fully healthy. And he really hasn't been right all season long. It's really only been like a month and some days since the injury, and it's clearly still affecting him. I think he needs to be put on the IL. Like I get it, it's a short season, but they want to make a push for the playoffs. Then he needs to be healthy, and he's not providing much right now. He does have tied for team lead for home runs, but other than that, there's not much he's doing well. He's striking out a whole lot. His plate discipline has been bad. You can split at bats between Beatty or Rios. They haven't been all that great either, but I feel like they can produce the same amount as much he's producing right now, and at least they're healthy. Or you call up McKinstry or Lux, put them at second, move Taylor to center, and put Bailey at first. I know Bailey has struggled so far this season as well, but I feel like at least he's putting the ball in play, and he's hit the ball a few times hard, especially last night. So but that's another subject. So yeah, just Muncy needs to be healthy, and right now he just isn't. And again, it's led to his plate discipline really going to shit. So I just think he needs to be put on the IL just to rest up.
Yeah, and even if they don't want to put him on the IL, because I know they're kind of hesitant about putting players on there because you lose them for at least 10 days when they're playing every day. They at this point he needs to sit, even if it's 2, 3, 4 games in a row, whatever it is, because I don't think it's a talent thing for Muncy. It all seems very mental. So I don't know. We saw him come back. Was it last year that he got hit towards the end of the season and made it back like the last couple weeks? I think it was. Did he get hit in the? Was it the wrist? I know Taylor's wrist last year. He got hit in Boston, but I think there was one. I think Muncy got hit in San Diego or something like that, and he came back and he didn't produce great, but he wasn't terrible or anything. So I don't think this is just an injury thing for Muncy. I 100% believe that it's probably a lot more mental than anything. He just signed that contract to get through arbitration for the next 2 years. So, I don't know. It's kind of hard. It's a hard situation. It's a weird situation. You don't want to take a bat out of a guy's hand for 10 days because it could matter. But at the same time, every single game counts. So, I don't know. They've got to figure it out though, because I have not enjoyed
mental, then
watching.
I think him sitting could really just help him clear his mind, at least for a few days.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, even if it's just, hey, sit and watch these guys play baseball and just remember, like, you're out here to have fun, then so be it. Like, whatever the case may be. But yeah, whatever's happening right now is just not working for him, and it's killing the team, especially with him hitting so high up in the order. So even if they drop him out of that 2 spot, I don't care who you're going to put in there. Put Turner in there, put Pollock in there, someone who's just making contact, putting the ball in play, put them in there. But unfortunately right now, Max Muncy is not the answer for the 2 spot, and we'll see what happens. But I'm kind of hoping I'd like to see a lineup come out today, to be honest, without Bellinger or Muncy in it, but I don't think that'll happen.
No.
So,
I don't think there's a chance of that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to move on to some questions, and the first question is, what should the Dodgers do about Corey Seager? Should they move him to a different position, trade him in the offseason or the next deadline next year? or do nothing and wait till the end of next year to either let him walk or resign him. Now, Corey Seager is clearly a good baseball player when healthy, but that's been the problem: health. Ever since he had that first injury, this has been like a consistent thing with him, whether it's a nagging hamstring injury or his hip or now his back. So this is a very tough decision on the Dodgers to make, and I'm not sure what the right choice is. I honestly have no idea at this point, but I want to get your opinion on it. If you were the Dodgers, what would you do with Seager?
Um, I I think it's hard with this season because it's COVID season, but we know how Corey Seager is when he's healthy. And seeing him healthy this season, seeing how he's produced so far, I feel like with the Dodgers, they might have to make that effort to try to extend him. If he plays again this way, I don't think trading him, especially without knowing what's going on with Lux, I just don't think you can trade him because Lux was supposed to be potentially our future shortstop if we move Seager over or whatever the case may be. We're going to lose if we were to get rid of Seager. We don't know what's happening with Lux. There goes two of our big infield pieces that were supposed to be part of this great team. We don't know what's going to happen with Turner at the end of the season, so you're kind of opening up too much of the infield, in my opinion, and he is one of the better hitters in baseball when he's healthy. He's one of the best shortstops when he's healthy, and my only concern is if he plays like this again in 2021, if he stays healthy, even if it's for 140 games of the season, whatever the case may be, there's a good chance he could get some big money going into free agency. He is the same year as Lindor, I believe, so that could impact things a little bit. But like you mentioned, his biggest concern is staying healthy, which he's already had issues with this year. But again, it's hard for me to gauge any injuries this season because of the way everything played out with COVID. We don't know if these injuries are coming because Corey Seager's just always been injury prone or if because his body just wasn't ready to go when they threw him out there and you're going 110%. They didn't have a lot of games to get going. So I don't know 100%. I like the guy a lot. I think if what we're getting now is the Corey Seager we know he's capable of being when he's healthy, I find it hard to believe that the Dodgers trade him or that they can allow him to just walk.
So you'd be willing to forego 20 to 30 games possibly every year just to have his bat in there for the 130, 140.
Well, I mean, we don't know if that's going to happen. I get where you're coming from, but it's potentially 10 to 20 games a season. And with the way things are going to be, the DH will be coming to the NL, so it'll keep Seager off his feet a little bit more if they need to. And yeah, I just don't know who you're going to get to replace him that's going to be better. There's not going, unless they get Lindor, which I just don't know if it'll happen. Not to mention their numbers are pretty similar when Seager's healthy.
Seager's better offensively when healthy, and Lindor's better defensively.
Okay.
But with the way the Dodgers position themselves, defense doesn't matter all that much.
Yeah, that's my only thing is I'm not sure there's many better options out there besides Seager. And like I said, we don't know what's going to happen with Lux. If Lux had come out and been like, hey, I'm the prospect you guys thought I was, like maybe my opinion would be different on this. But I feel like there's so many question marks about, does Justin Turner return next year? Is Lux going to figure it out? And with all those questions, like it's just Bellinger's not, I know it's early into the season, but Bellinger's not hitting the ball. Like, it's hard for me to give up on Seager when we've seen what he can produce.
Yeah, I'm not giving up on Seager at all. I think if I had to make a choice, I would keep him just because I know how good he is when healthy. I would probably move him to third.
Now that much I'm okay with.
That leaves a hole at shortstop because hot take here, or I don't know if it's a hot take, but I'd rather Lux play second. I think he's better there than that short, especially for his arm, because he does sometimes get the case of the yips, and it's much shorter distance from second than throwing from short. So finding a shortstop would be the issue at that point.
Yeah, there is that, which they could have to worry about. But I do think even with Seager's injury concerns and him being such a big guy for shortstop, I still think they have a few years before that becomes an actual issue. And so I think there would be plenty of time to fix that hole
Yeah,
if need be.
of course.
And I am also I don't think we're not worried about his contract just yet, obviously, but we still have guys like Taylor who can take over at shortstop if need be over the next couple years, next 2-3 years. If you want to get, like I said, get Corey off his feet or even stick him at third base, the Dodgers do have the ability to put somebody else at shortstop while trying to figure out the next move there if that's the route they decide to go.
Yeah.
But yeah, I could see Seager moving to third. It would just, my only question would be what happens with Hosey in the long run, but who knows? Maybe they trade him for a shortstop. Maybe they draft a shortstop who will be ready to go in 3-4 years. Who knows?
Hosey could potentially move to first or left. Who knows?
Yeah. The way this team is, I would rather focus on what the players are doing offensively because somehow they manage to pull a defensive player out of their ass every single year. So they'd figure out how to do it. They'd find someone who could play shortstop and can produce. And if Seager has to move to third, that's fine. I just don't want to. I just think Seager's bat is too important, and he's one of the top hitters in baseball when he's healthy.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
With that said, into the next question. Obviously, we're only a few weeks into the season, but with how quickly things are going, you do kind of have to pay attention to the free agents and how they're doing this year. The Dodgers have quite a few of them. Off the top of my head, I think there was Turner, Kike, Jock, Baez, Trinan, and Alex Wood. I think we're all 6 of them. So the question was, a few weeks into the season, who are the best free agent candidates to come back? And really, I only came back with 2, which was Turner and Baez. I'm not 100% sold on Trinan just yet, and I'm fine with letting Kike and Jock walk. I wouldn't be upset if Jock came back. I do not want to see Kike come back, but I just don't think Jock will stay with the Dodgers. But again, I don't know. Turner, obviously, I would like for him to come back. I don't think 2020 speaks to what's happening in his career. I think he's off to a slow start just like anybody else. There's been plenty of talks between baseball analysts that think that the DH might end up in the NL next year, even though the CBA does not change until after the 2021 season. So if that's the case and we're never seeing pitchers hit again in the NL, then I absolutely want Turner back. He'd be a perfect DH candidate. Baez has been really strong out there this year so far, and for the most part, and I think the Dodgers could get him back fairly cheap. And like I said, I'm not sure I'm sold on Trinan yet. I still think he has the ability to turn things around, but I also think that we've already seen this year there's so much depth in the bullpen with young guys and veterans that I don't think Trinan is necessarily going to be a must-have piece. But that's my thoughts, so let me hear yours.
Okay, so I had 3. And Trinan was one of them. Now, he has struggled with command. He's walked 6 in 7 innings, but his ERA is 0. He's hasn't given up a run. He's gotten timely groundouts and strikeouts when he's really needed it. And at this point, I wouldn't mind seeing him back. Turner has had a rocky start, but I still have this confidence in him that I don't have with really any other player in the lineup. That includes Bellinger. I just have this confidence that Turner needs to be with his team a little longer, and as you mentioned, the DH could be here next year, as early as next year, so it makes all the sense in the world to give him a 2 or 3 year deal and just have him be the DH. Well, he can play third next year again, but then slowly transition into being a DH. And then I also had Pedro Baez. I almost said Javi, and then I also said Pedro Baez because I think he'll sharp the bullpen that much more. Other than that, Kike, Peterson, and Wood can all go. With the caveat being, I would not mind seeing Peterson back, but the other 2 for sure, they have to leave.
Yeah, Jock, I wouldn't mind coming back. I won't be upset if he goes. But yeah, Kike and Wood, I appreciate what they've done for the Dodgers over their career, but I just think it might be better for all parties to split ways. I think it's and I know Barnes isn't a free agent, but I'm right there with that thought too, that I think some guys need to kind of just go in order to flourish somewhere
So,
else.
so then, what would you do as far as backup goes? Would you let uh, Ruiz do
I
it,
mean, he
or
can't do any worse than Barnes is doing offensively, and defensively, he's supposed to be pretty solid, isn't he?
yeah,
So yeah, I mean, you have all this time next year to still get Ruiz out there. Like, I'm hoping he's catching every single day at the alternate site and working on that kind of stuff, because you 100% could go that route.
yeah,
Um, so I just, yeah, I think I think he's better off with another team. You just throw Kyber in there. Smith has shown that he can play every day. I know that he has not played every day this year, but again, I think that's part of COVID, making sure he's not running out of energy, because they didn't get their legs under them like they're used to for as much time. So yes, I do think that that would be the case. There is, you just,
here's the thing with Smith. To me, is I don't think he actually can play every day. He's gonna have to because Barnes is that bad. But if they were to have like a suitable backup, like I don't know, we don't know how Ruiz is gonna do. If they go get somebody or something, then I don't think Smith will start every day.
and he might not. Um, but I still think what Ruiz could do offensively as a backup is still going to give us more than what Barnes will do.
Besides yesterday, it's kind of hard to do worse. I probably could do the same thing Barnes is doing for half the price.
Yeah, so I'd rather just get Ruiz up there and have him start. And if they're not great behind the plate, it's not going to be much of a downgrade, but at least it gets them in there and gets them to start going. Because eventually, yeah, and eventually we're going to have to figure out who's going to be the catcher. It's not going to be
Yeah.
Ruiz and Smith. It can't. They both have too much value for the Dodgers to hold on to both of them. So I think they have to figure out who it's going to be, and I'm really hoping that 2021 is going to be that year that they throw them both out there, or at least a majority of 2021, and then by 2022 we have our answer, because I think Cartea is going to come up fairly quickly. Not like, I'm not saying in the big leagues really quickly, but I just have a feeling he's going to run through the systems pretty quickly. Age wise, like once he gets there age wise, and he's still, I think, too young to be like flying through everything, but I just have a feeling,
like still 17, right, or 18?
Yeah, 17 or 18, yeah. So he's still really young, but I just have a feeling that like they're going to need to make their decision on Ruiz or Smith soon, because in the next few years you're probably going to see Cartea as the backup and then eventually taking over that starting spot if he lives up to the hype that they have talked about so much.
You know what's crazy is catchers usually take longer than everybody else. Like, I don't know the average age, but I feel like it's always between 24 and up. Cartaya could really be like a starting catcher at 20, which kind of seems ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So, well, and he's I think, probably our best catching prospect overall. Obviously, he's not going to show up yet in the rankings because he's too young, but from everything that I've read about
He's
and
definitely
heard
got
about,
the potential.
yeah, but yeah, potential wise. So I don't know. That part will be interesting, but we'll move into the next question. So if you want to go ahead and give that one, we'll get into that because it kind of plays into this a little bit, at least for me. So go ahead.
Okay, so the season has been off to sort of like a rocky start. So where can the Dodgers improve this season? Now, the easy and obvious answer is the offense, but all it's going to take is for players to start doing what we know they can do. They probably could get some better bench pieces, but at this point, again, it's still too early to figure out like who's available or not. So, what did you say to this?
I don't really think there's anywhere to upgrade. Their only real issue right now is offense, and with the lineup, it's not like there's really a true hole outside of catcher. And even when you bring up the production offensively, we mentioned Smith seems to be trending upwards, at least the way he's making contact. It might not show that way on the stat lines, but I don't think they really can upgrade. The bullpen has easily been one of the best bullpens we've seen in a long time. The starting pitchers have had their moments where they're not great, like Stripling last night. Kershaw struggled a bit in his last start. Buehler struggled. But for the most part, they've been pretty solid, all things considering, with the way this season has gone. I just think our offense needs to find their bats, because if you look at this lineup, when Seager is healthy, you have the best lineup in baseball. There is no really replacing anybody with anybody, in my opinion. I just don't know who you're going to replace at that point. And I also don't really want to trade this year. I don't like that the trade would only be for like 30 games. And we're not even guaranteed a postseason with everything going on with COVID. So I would rather not even risk the chance. We already almost saw how all that played out with the Mookie and Price trade, not knowing if we'd ever see Mookie play in a Dodger uniform. So I'm not really wanting to go down that route, but that's just me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens. But mentioning the lineup, I'm going to go with ideal rotation and lineup. But first, I'm going to give you my lineup because we were just talking about this. I don't think it could get much better than this. But if it was up to me, I would go. And again, the order I'm going in is if these players were actually playing to how they should be playing. It's right now, I feel like it's really hard to put anyone in there besides Seager, Pollock, and Betts. Everyone else should be like just batting in the 7th, 8th, 9th spot kind of. But if everybody's playing to their potential the way they should be, I would go Betts in right field, Muncy at first, Turner at third, Bellinger in center, Seager at short, Pollock in left field, Taylor at second, and then I would have Rios DH with Smith catching. If a lefty is pitching, my only change would probably be Rios, and I'd probably put Kike in there. Still not 100. It just depends. Let Kike bat against lefties. You can also have Taylor move to DH that game. You can have Kike go to second because we do know Kike has the defense. Or you could even get Pollock out of there, put Pollock at DH, Kike at second, Taylor on left. There's so many ways to mix it around. But for the most part, I want my lineup to be the same, with the only exception of switching out positions and then switching out Rios and Kike depending on the pitchers. As for my ideal rotation, I'm going with Kershaw, Buehler, Urias, May. And then for that 5 spot, I'm going with Gonsolin or Stripling. Not really set. Right now, I'd obviously say I'm more set on Gonsolin than I am Stripling, but Stripling did start off well. I just think Gonsolin and Stripling can both be good as starters and good out of the bullpen, but I would like to see Gonsolin out there starting. So, but that 5 spot, I'm not really set on. I feel like that can be swapped by anyone, whether it's Mitchell White, Josiah Gray, Tony Gonsolin, or Ross Stripling. So that's mine. I have a feeling yours might be similar, but let me hear yours.
Kind of similar. So for lineup, I had Betts leading off, and this is where people might be like, what? Okay, so Betts is leading off. Second, I have Gavin Lux, and I'll explain it later. Third, Turner. Fourth, Bellinger. Fifth, Seager. 6, Pollock. 7, Muncy. 8, Taylor. And 9, Smith. Now, and I'll get my rotation after I go through all this. So I chose Lux, and I put him at the top of the order because that's where he's been the best at. I understand he hasn't earned it, and he needs to prove he can hit there, but I just think that's where he's most comfortable. And if you look through his minor league stats, when he hits at the top of the order, he really hits. And I personally, I just like his profile a lot better in that spot with the contact. He can provide some power. He's got speed, and he has the ability to walk as well. Now, put Taylor on the left and Pollock at DH. If everyone's doing what they're supposed to do, then this lineup should be great. Betts can do it all. I've already explained why I have Lux in there. Turner's an all-around good hitter. Belly provides the power. Seager was also a candidate to bat second, but I liked his power profile in the 5th spot. Pollock to break up the lefty string. Then Muncy hitting 7th. If he's right, that's insane. And then Taylor and Smith. You could probably switch Taylor and Smith because Taylor can be your pseudo second leadoff hitter, like the MLB likes to say. So, yeah, that was my lineup. As far as my rotation goes, Buehler, May, Kershaw, Gonsolin, Urias in that order. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. These are just the 5 that personally I think are the best starters at the moment. I know ERA isn't everything, but when the team leader in that stat is your fifth starter in Urias, that is a really deep rotation.
Yeah, it is. The rotation, I think, can have so many different back and forth. I feel like there's really nothing set there. But yep, I agree. We're kind of on the same page there. I guess we'll have to wait and see
Also,
when
I
the
wanted
team
to
is.
point out that I know everybody's like down on Bellinger, and I get it. His hard hit rate is still better than Muncie's, and he's lower than what he's supposed to be producing. So at some point, he's gonna start finding holes, and I won't say he'll be back to MVP season Bellinger, but he could be back to something like the first two seasons where he's not an MVP candidate, but he's still a really good player.
Yep, I agree. I don't want to give up on Bellinger. I just think he needs a day off for his head, a day or two off, and not pinch hit. Just put him like we saw in Arizona. Just put him in the stands. Let him go back to having fun. I feel like especially with picking up bets, I feel like he probably feels like there's a lot of pressure on him to reproduce from what he did last year. The Dodgers now have 2 MVP outfielders, and there was all this, Betts and Bellinger MVP type thing. So I kind of feel like maybe a lot of it for him is mentally. I see a lot of other things going on around Twitter about why people think it's what's hurting him, and I hope that's not the case.
I'm all ears with what's going on.
He's dating Stanton's ex-girlfriend. Stanton's model ex-girlfriend. So
Giancarlo Stanton.
Yeah.
So it's the girl's fault?
That's what I'm hearing. I didn't even know he had a new girlfriend till last night. I just saw everyone going like, why does Bellinger suck? Is it the girlfriend? Is it whatever the case may be? And I had no...
You know, what I find interesting and dumb at the same time is whenever an athlete is struggling, they always blame the woman first. It's kind of annoying and dumb at the same time. Like, just because this player isn't doing well doesn't mean it's the woman's fault or it's the woman's curse. Like, I really get tired of hearing that. That could just be me, though. It doesn't make sense.
I'm sure a lot of women feel that way. I'm sure a lot of men don't. I'm sure a lot of women feel that way. I just thought it was funny because, like, I don't believe in it either. I'm just, like, laughing like that's really what, like, I just thought it was funny. And the fact that it was Stanton's ex, like, that just made me laugh even more. Cause
I did not know. So he's not with the girl he posted pictures with previously?
No, not the one this one has not been on his Instagram yet. This chick's a model. Yeah, it's not the girl from back home, which I think is other people's arguments too, is once the guys end up becoming big and you leave your day ones and start heading off for models, you're going to have fans saying things. So
he might be feeling himself too much, but
you know what? Someone said that too. They're like, I think he got too full of himself, and it's funny because I had felt that way the entire time after he won MVP. If you kind of looked at the way he started putting himself out there, he was coming off very like, look at me kind of way. I think he is very full of himself right now, and I think he is being brought down back to earth, and I'm hoping that'll get everything going for him. I don't care who he dates, as long as he's happy, get out there and produce. It's none of my business. I don't think it has anything to do with the girl. If anything, I think he's probably just in his own head and maybe got a little too full of himself.
I can 100% see that. I think he's in his own head now because he got full of himself. But the thing is, I never saw Bellinger as the player he was last year. To me, I knew that wasn't him. He just had a great year.
Yeah.
The player I think Bellinger is the one he was the first 2 years.
Yeah. No, I don't.
He's not going to hit over 300. He'll hit 260, but he'll provide power and play great defense, and he can steal some bases.
Yeah, that's what someone said.
I've always seen Bellinger. That's not a bad player.
I said that last night. I was like, who broke Bellinger? And someone was like, I don't think anyone broke him. I just think we haven't come to the realization that he's actually a 270 hitter, and he's not like this crazy bat that everyone keeps trying to make him out to be, which might be true. And it makes sense. He's so young. He goes and wins that MVP. He's all of a sudden everywhere, like doing commercials with everything, It wouldn't surprise me. I am not concerned about him in the long term at all. Like I said, I don't actually think this has anything to do with who he's dating. I just think it's a weird combination of the way 2020's played out, him trying to come into this new big time fame, and he's obviously made some changes in his personal life, and no matter who you are, that it's an adjustment period, and most people will have to go through some kind of change before they figure out kind of what's going on in this situation. So
there's one thing he can do to help negate this struggling thing, and that's not try to pull everything. If he would let the ball get a little deeper and go the other way, he would see a lot more hits. So obviously because of the shift, but there are times where he does keep his head down on the ball, go the other way, and hit a hard single to left, and he should start doing more of that. And it's not as glamorous as a home run, but it's still a way to get on base. You'll feel better about yourself, and when you start doing that, you will be allowed to open up more and then be able to pull home runs should you feel the need to.
Dude, I was so happy last night when Jock laid down that bunt. I don't know what the hell is going on and why more guys like Muncy and Bellinger are not doing that. Jock is slower than both of them. And the fact that he laid down a bunt and had no issue beating it out, like last night, Bellinger hit into 2 double plays. I would have rather him just bunted and like left the runners where they were.
Well, the first double play, he hit the ball pretty hard.
Yeah, the first one. The second one, though, in my head, I was thinking, like, screw it. I trust the runners on base because I think one was Mookie, and I forget who the other one was that was ahead of him. And I was thinking, like, screw it. Just lay down the bunt. If Mookie doesn't run home, that's fine. Do not hit into a double play. And then he hit into a double play.
I get it from your standpoint, but I don't think teams really want their quote-unquote best hitters to be laying down bunts.
I don't either, but I don't want my best hitters to be striking out.
It's kind of like taking the bat out of your hands.
Yeah, and it might be, but sometimes you just need that motivation in that. Like last night was the first time I saw Jock smiling on the field in a while when he reached first base on that bunt single. Like, I don't want Belly doing this all the time, but when you're in that big of a slump, get on base, get your confidence back. Like, if he would have just done it once last night, and even if it didn't work out, that would have been fine. I definitely don't want to see him do it every day because I understand taking the bat out of his hands. Right. I understand last night they were down, and if he had put the right bat, and if you put the bat on the ball correctly, the Dodgers only would have been down 2 instead of 5 or whatever it was. So I get it.
I think that's the thing. I wouldn't be surprised to see him do it today, but not with people on base. If people are on base, he's going to swing. If they're not on base, then he will likely drop the bunt down.
Yeah, I know it seemed unrealistic with runners on base, but the way things have going, like I didn't even care at this point. Like someone, her name's Jody, on Twitter, I think Jody Wall, and she put it out there today, and she's like, I'm happy baseball's back, but I've got to be honest, like there's kind of a disconnect, and I'm kind of feeling that way too with it. And I think it's just because 2020, it's hard to find a lot of joy in really anything, and it's easy to get down so quickly on something like this because I think a lot of us had expected baseball to come back and make this big change in our lives and make us kind of forget everything shitty going on. And it has, don't get me wrong, but I think it's been very easy as a fan because I'm doing it. It's been very easy to get down on the team very quickly and be like, fuck this. Like, what are you guys doing? Just go out there and hit the ball because it's what we're used to. So it's just been, I think, a lot harder to enjoy baseball right now, and I think it's like putting my expectations for the players through the roof because I want them to provide me with that happiness and joy since I can't really get it anywhere else right now since you can't do anything or go anywhere. So I just it's a weird season. I'm not mad at any one player. I'm not mad at Belly. I'm not worried about him in the long term. I'm just right now as a fan, I am having an extremely hard time enjoying watching these baseball games.
Yeah, that's completely fair. Just the one caveat for everybody out there, I'm sure you people know, but hitting is hard.
Yeah,
I know they're professionals, but again, it's still difficult. But yes, I agree. There is a disconnect. There's a lot going on, a lot of bad stuff going on, and you're frustrated watching this team because they're not doing what they should be doing, and you're looking for any kind of joy and happiness because when they score runs, everybody's happy, everything's well in the world for at least those few hours. But when they're not doing that, it's just more dread on a dreadful day. So I understand.
Yeah, it's just like one thing after another being piled
Yeah.
on. So, but yeah. With that said, we'll go into our next question. That one's yours.
Okay.
So
Yeah. So the Dodgers extend a qualifying offer to any of their free agents. Now, personally, I think they can sign Brian Baez without having to do that. So maybe just give it to Peterson. Otherwise, I fear players would take it, especially climate going on. Like extending it to Kike and having to pay him all that money is not a smart move whatsoever. Peterson, I think you'd be okay with because in theory, still hit right-handers and a platoon with him and Pollock should still work despite how rough the start of the season has been. Now, you could let Jock go because there's Cody Thomas, but who knows how he would do. So extending a qualifying offer to Peterson would make sense.
So I went with giving qualifying offers to almost everyone, not Kike. But I go with probably Treinen, Baez, Jock. And the reason for this is because if any of them agree to take the qualifying offer, it is a good chunk of money. I don't care about the money. This is the Dodgers we're talking about. And for a 1-year contract, I wouldn't mind having any of them come back. It's not a long-term commitment. It allows us to have that chance with them. I don't think someone like Jock would take it. I think Jock wants that big contract. And so offering him that qualifying offer. Wait, hang on. What is going on with the draft picks? Because that's where I'm confused that they were changing all of that. Are there draft picks attached to players or not? Because then that changes everything.
I want to say during the discussions, they said that it was no longer attached.
I thought they did too, but I don't know if that was ever final. Like, that's the only thing that's bugged me about this 2020 season is so much has been talked about that I don't know what has been finalized and what hasn't.
I think it's still unclear at this point. So, yeah, I don't know.
It doesn't really change my answer either way. I mean, I don't want to pay Treinen $17 million a year or Baez or Jock, but if the qualifying or if a draft pick is attached to them, then I think 100% you offer it because if they come back on a 1 year, it's not a big deal. If they don't, you get that draft pick. If there is no draft pick attached to it, then I'm only probably offering that to Turner, probably no one else. Yeah. And with Kike, I would not offer it to him. And that's only because he's struggling a little bit this season. And I'd be worried that he would take it because he might want a full 162 to go back and play to earn his free agency. And I know everybody's a big Kike fan, and I think the guy's great. I would be okay with him on another team. I don't want him even back on a 1-year contract.
I think Kike is a lot of fun. He's got great personality.
Yeah, he is.
However, he is not an everyday baseball player. And I wish you guys would kind of get that through your head.
Yeah, I don't.
If he was just to start against lefties, fine. But he's starting against righties, and we're seeing how that's going. It's not great.
I don't think most people will deny that. I think what the denial is the personality. And I think for a lot of fans, I don't think most fans think he's an everyday starter. I think what it is people want to see him out there every day because of his personality. And so they're allowing that to kind of overtake the whole, oh, well, he shouldn't play every day because it's more of a no, he should play every day because he's fun. Although I know there are some fans out there that would die for Kike, which is fine. I think every player has fans like that for them. It's totally fine. My issue is that with the Dodgers' depth, there's just no reason in him taking up a spot when there are better replacements at every single position he plays. So that's kind of my biggest issue with it. But
yeah, no offense, but I no longer want him on this team. So
yeah, I don't think
I wish him the best elsewhere. Have fun in San Francisco.
I hope
wherever
he goes, he kills it. As long as it's not against us, I'm happy for him. I'm happy for his wife. I think they're
absolutely. Congratulations on them.
Yes,
on her being pregnant. I hope when it's that time, the baby's healthy and
I
safe.
hope this mess is over because all these families, and since you mentioned that, congratulations to the Barnes, Austin and his wife, Nicole. They are pregnant. They just announced it the other day. So I just hope that not even for baseball players, just everyone, this COVID could end because it stresses me out with all these people pregnant having to go give birth with all this going on. But yeah, anyways, nothing against Kike. I just our depth is too much that I don't. It's the same thing with Jock. I don't mind Jock. I like Jock. I think he's been fun to watch. He's been good to have on the team, but I just don't care much for the platoon if we have guys that can be out there every day, which I know Pollock is not someone we can just go, oh, well, he's taking over Jock full time yet. We can't go off and say that, but I also just would not be upset if he goes.
I don't think that's a wise move. So how would you replace Jock in the outfield? I don't think Pollock's an everyday starter. We know he's hurt all the time too, so putting him out there.
If we're talking about 2021, I'm going to pretend Gavin Lux is healthy and out there playing every day, and I would probably work with Taylor, Beatty, and maybe find a way to get Rios comfortable in the outfield if that's possible. If not, that's fine too. He can DH first and third.
Yeah, I was thinking Taylor,
but
then again, it's two right-handed batters.
Yeah, but I don't think
to find somebody who can mash righties.
Yeah, which is fine still. I mean, like you said, we can still talk about potentially Cody Thomas. We can always trade, sign a free agent.
Yeah,
I feel like outfield, you can always find someone to play outfield. So, not too worried there. But with that is it on the Dodgers stuff. I just want to run through some stuff super quickly for MLB news. Nothing really to discuss, just a couple things that have happened. Last week, the MLB and the MLBPA have agreed to changes to the operations manual. So starting tomorrow, this began last week, although we still don't see it happening. Players and staff must wear face coverings over their nose, mouth at all times and in all places in the stadium except for players on the field. This includes the dugout and bullpen. Teams are required to provide outdoor covered spaces for the visiting team to minimize time spent indoors. Both teams must also have dedicated spaces for when they can observe social distancing during rain delays. And teams must reduce their traveling parties to only personnel who are absolutely essential to playing games. All staff and players must wear face coverings at all times in hotels, in the road, except for when alone in their rooms. So they are going a little bit harder with those protocols, which is good. We've seen an entire breakout happen with the Marlins and Cardinals, and the Cardinals have been a complete disaster. They have played 5 games all season. Their entire series this week has been canceled. If they're lucky, they will get to start back up Friday. Quite frankly, I think they need to just cancel their season. You should not be putting other teams at risk by asking them to go play a bunch of doubleheaders because the Cardinals were stupid and went out and spread the virus around. I just don't think it's fair to the other teams in the central divisions that have been doing what they need to do to stay safe, and you want to go out there and go, hey, you guys are going to play doubleheaders because of whatever's going on with the Cardinals. So I really think MLB needs to
wait, I haven't seen honestly I haven't seen much on the Cardinals. Is it worse than what the Marlins outbreak was?
Oh yeah, it's 100 times worse.
Really?
The Marlins
had like 20 people on there.
Yeah, but the Marlins somehow cut theirs. The problem is the Cardinals just had another test come back positive within the last couple days. The Marlins didn't have that issue. All the Marlins positive tests stopped within like a couple days span. The Cardinals positive tests have been going on for like over a week now.
Okay.
So the Marlins, I think, are like 5 or 6 games behind everybody else. The Cardinals have played 5 games, which means they're now 13 games behind everybody else. So it's a pretty dramatic change, and I don't think it's fair to those other teams in the Central to go, hey, you guys are going to start playing a bunch of doubleheaders because the Cardinals need to make up games. I don't think it's fair for the Cardinals to go out there and only play 50 games and still have a chance to make the postseason when all these other teams put themselves at risk for 60 games and did everything else. I think if we're going to have weird baseball season and stuff like this is going to happen, yeah. MLB just needs to stand up and say, sorry, you guys screwed yourself. You guys can continue to play, if you want to get the work in, but you're not have no chance at the playoffs, and we are not scheduling doubleheaders for other teams to make up so you guys can play. I just don't think it's fair. I would be so pissed off if it happened to the Dodgers, and the Dodgers had to play a bunch of doubleheaders and lost their off days because a team in the NL West screwed up. So, yeah, MLB doesn't know what they're doing. Last I heard, they said that they don't know how to handle this quite yet, that they might do percentages, which again is incredibly stupid. So we will see what happens.
You know what I find very interesting is like California, Arizona, Texas have kind of been hot spots, and nothing's happened with anybody in California or the Diamondbacks or the Astros or Rangers so far. So they've done well so far.
Yeah. They have, and so I don't know what's going on. A lot of these teams have been super strict. Really quickly, we don't really have much information, but MLB is talking about doing a bubble for this exact reason. It would be for the postseason for playoffs and World Series in order to keep players safe. You're bringing 16 teams into the playoffs, so I'm not 100% sure how they would do a bubble, but it is something they're talking about. Again, there's really not much information on it because nothing's been confirmed by MLB. It just seems to be info coming out. And then, of course, the last little tidbit of information, just because this has been kind of a crazy last few days, but the Indians actually had to send home 2 of their starters because they decided to go out on Saturday when they were in Chicago. It was Zach Plesac and Mike Clevenger. That Indians rotation is putting up stupid numbers that we've never seen before in baseball, and yet these 2 pitchers who were in their rotation went out because they wanted to go out in Chicago and hang out for a little bit. And so that's how serious the Indians are taking it. I'd like to think other teams will take it this serious too because they put their entire team at risk. But basically what I'm saying is everything's a mess, and MLB did not do a good enough job to make sure. Obviously, players have to take responsibility. No one told Clevenger and Plesac they were allowed to go out. They did that on their own. But MLB had no protocols in place what to do when teams were violating rules or when players were violating rules. It's been left completely up to the Indians. So we'll see what happens. But basically, we're just taking this one day at a time, hoping the season doesn't get canceled. So, yeah, that's it for this week. Good stuff. But I don't have,
so
yeah.
Like the bubble has worked for basketball, hockey, and soccer, but there are a lot more people in baseball, so I'm not sure how that's all going to go. But, I mean, it really can't hurt to put everybody in a bubble.
No, not at all.
Now, I remember I did send you a bunch of places that they could potentially play at. I just don't know how that's going to work or what they're actually going to do. Are they just going to put everybody in California?
Yeah, I think the place you sent me would be dope. I just don't think it'll work because you have to worry about weather. The one place, I forget where you sent it, but it was like in the Midwest.
The one I like the most, I think, is from like South Carolina.
Yeah, like I just don't think any of those would work because of the weather.
There's plenty of baseball hubs in Florida too, but yeah. Florida is Florida.
Yeah, Florida, that's why the picture that is on the article is of Arizona. So I don't know if that's the go-to place. Probably because they have all the
minor league stuff.
Yeah, and all the spring training facilities. And it's not too hot that time of year in Arizona. It's still fairly warm, but it's not like I don't think it's going to be like 110 degrees or whatever it is now, but
most likely the World Series would just be played inside Arizona Stadium.
Yeah, although California seems kind of like a good idea because you've got 3 stadiums all within within a 2 hour, it max 2 hours from LA to San Diego. So that might work. You could play 2 games each day at each stadium, or you could probably even do 3 if you wanted to. Do 3 games a day at each stadium. Give teams,
morning, afternoon, and the night game,
Yeah, and then give teams 1 day off, and then that's when you swap other teams. So it's doable, and I think it might have to be done. It's a lot harder with baseball than it is any other sport, so I get it.
Yeah.
But with that, that's all I had. Do you have anything else left to say?
You sent me some things this week about our podcast doing well in the Philippines. So shout out to the Philippines and Australia, I believe it was.
Yes, it was. So
Shout out to you
we
guys. That's
appreciate
super
everybody
dope.
listening, as
Yeah.
always.
Also, shout out to everybody else as well.
Yeah.
But just those two were really surprising to me. So just thank you, everybody from the Philippines and Australia. That's really dope.
Yeah, it's cool to see it. Like, obviously, we're expected a bunch of listeners in the U.S., and we're competing with a ton of podcasts in the U.S., and I'm sure there's less in the Philippines and Australia, so that's why, like, we're higher up, but I don't care because the fact is people are listening to it. So that's all I care about, but it's dope to know that it's making its way around the world, not just the U.S., but yeah, so with that said, as always, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, night, evening, morning, whenever you listen to this. Make sure you leave that rating and review on the podcast. It really does mean a lot to us. You can find all of our social media at Dodger Yard. You can find me at Randy_Radcliffe.
And you can find me at Michael Konu.
And we will catch you guys next week, hopefully with a lot more positive things to say about this offense. And we can finally have a few good games in a row where we can enjoy and see this
They play
team.
The Angels next, right?
Yes, that is correct.
They should be able to get their bats going, but I don't know.
Angels always play us tough, so we'll see.
They do, yeah.
But either way, it should be fun. I like to watch Trout play. We'll get to face Rendon and hopefully take it to him so we can show him what that Hollywood lifestyle is really about. But other than that, we will catch you guys next week. So have a good one. And yeah, bye guys.
See you later, guys.